right, Councilman, it's great to have you here today, and we're going to speak a little about your services and what you've done in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's great to be here, Mayor, and always great to be in Lynbrook, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with
And
you.
so does our neighbors. We want to see you, and they love you, and we're going to talk about some things.
Okay, go
All
ahead.
right. First question.
Yep.
Tough one, finances.
Sure.
All right. You are the senior councilman on the largest village in the United States, I believe.
Right. Town of Hempstead is the largest township in the United States, larger than, I think at last check it was 5 states in terms of population. And it's quite an undertaking. It's a very diverse community. It's a community that miles of coastline and waterways and office buildings and a lot of commerce industry. It's a very diverse, and obviously with the hallmark of the town of Hempstead are wonderful suburban neighborhoods, just like here in Lynbrook, which is
sure. And I know you especially do things for the seniors and our youth. And tell me a little bit about how your finances and what you use them for.
Well, let me just go back with the general issue of finances. We're very, very proud in the town of Hempstead that our finances have remained in solid financial shape. We still have one of Wall Street's highest credit ratings, which, as you know, Mayor, from managing municipal budgets here in Lynbrook for many years, that it's become ever more of a challenge. The last 7 or so years since the financial meltdown that started in 2008 has really just strained municipal budgets to the breaking point, and as it has family budgets, and that's really the key. Is that the easy answer, whether it's on the village level or the town level or the county level, the easy answer is just to raise taxes. But that's not the right answer, because you have homeowners here, middle class people for the most part, that are struggling to make ends meet. Seniors finding it very difficult to stay in the homes that they raised their children in, that they've lived in for whether it's 20, 30 years. Now as they enter into their retirement years, the so-called golden years, they're finding it very difficult to make ends meet. The other side of the spectrum, young people. I mean, we have a situation where many young people who have grown up here, who maybe go away to college, when they're done with college and they're saddled with however much, 20, 30, 40, maybe $50,000 in loan debt or more even, they find that they simply can't afford to move back to the communities that they grew up in, where their parents are, where their relatives are, and many of them find that they have to pull up stakes and go elsewhere.
Out of state sometimes.
Absolutely, because the only other alternative is what, going back to live in the room that they grew up in, or in an illegal basement apartment,
Right.
neither which is a palatable or.
No, it's not what you want.
No,
You don't want
and our young people deserve better. So. The tax question is fundamental, because if we don't, at the local level, whether it's village, county, and town, if we don't keep property taxes in check for our homeowners, you're going to make a tough situation virtually untenable.
Yeah.
So we have to, my philosophy is we have to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to not raise taxes. But you still, the other side of that coin is you still have to deliver services.
Yeah.
Because obviously the services that we deliver on the local level, as you do here in Lynbrook, are fundamental. They're critical services. I always like to say, while what goes on in Washington and what goes on in Albany may have more appeal, it may be more exciting, whether we're talking about foreign policy or education policy or whatever the case may be. If you look at what we deal with on the local level and just think about it for a second, just think about how important it is. If here in Lynbrook, let's say, because this is a village and you're in charge of sanitation in Lynbrook, just as in the many of the unincorporated areas of the township, town of Hempstead is in charge of sanitation collection. If you're unable to pick up the refuse that a homeowner puts at the curb on a given day. Well, the first day, they'll be a little perplexed.
Yeah.
The second day that they would get a normal collection and no one comes by, now they're going to start to get annoyed, and I'm sure the phones
start calling.
The phones here at Village Hall will start to go off the hook. By the third day, you have a real critical health problem in the community, and it becomes a real serious problem very, very fast. And if you're not delivering the services, and we're not delivering the services on the local level that people rely on, like sanitation collection, like plowing the streets when it snows, like fixing and repairing potholes after the terrible winter we just had. If we don't get those jobs done, all of a sudden what people are worrying about in terms of foreign policy or other big national issues, it all kind of goes out the window because it's right here. I mean, if we don't, when it snows, if we don't plow the street where that dialysis patient lives and they have to get out to get their treatment, that becomes a real matter of life and death really quickly. And a lot of times we don't think about that in terms of local government, but it really is. So we have the problem of trying to keep taxes down, doing more with less, making the dollar go further while still delivering the services that people absolutely have to have. And even now, I talked about some of the critical services that they have to have, but there's a lot of nice things that make life worth living here in the town of Hempstead and in places like Lynbrook. Our parks, our recreational facilities, golf courses, beaches, pools, things like that, which is the suburban lifestyle that so many people really look for. And I don't think you'll find it better anywhere else in the United States than here in the town of Hempstead, because you've got obviously those kind of amenities that I spoke about. You can get in your car and you can drive over to the town of Hempstead's golf course in Merrick or in Lido Beach, be there in 15, 20 minutes and play a wonderful round of golf. You can go another 10 minutes past that and be on some of the most beautiful beachfront you'll find anywhere. We've got outstanding programs for seniors. We run senior centers and senior clubs throughout the township that give a lot of people, provide hot meals for seniors who need it, that give them a place to go and recreation and socialization and friendship and things of that nature. We've got the Camp Anchor program, which is a nationally award-winning program for individuals that are developmentally disabled. And that program, we just built a brand new state-of-the-art facility for the Camp Anchor program down in the Lido Point Lookout area, and again, a tremendous investment in some of our community's most beautiful citizens. But again, those are not services that, like as I said about sanitation and water. We run, the town of Hempstead runs a water company in the east end of the town of Hempstead. I mean, here it's private water, where we are now in Lynbrook, but if you go further out east, the town of Hempstead Water Department actually delivers the water supply to hundreds of thousands of residents. Critical programs. But the other programs, the recreation, the beaches, the golf courses, the senior programs, the shows, we have a beautiful series of concerts that we have throughout the summer. They're just going to start. I think it's Saturday, the 27th of June, will be the first one. A big fireworks show and concert down at Point Lookout. But those are the things that are like the icing on the cake that really makes this such a wonderful place to live.
Well, you've anticipated some of my questions, but how did your stewardship, along with Kate Murray's, accomplish this?
Well, I think it's always been, I've been very privileged to work with Supervisor Murray for the last 12 years that she has been town supervisor. She's actually the third town supervisor that I've served with on the town board. I started with Supervisor Greg Peterson, then Supervisor Rich Gardino, and now Supervisor Murray. So I've been on the town board for 22 years. Which is how I get that title of senior councilman. It just means I've survived longer than everybody else. And but during those years, I've been very privileged to work with some outstanding supervisors, and they basically all had the same philosophy, which is you watched every penny. You were very careful about how you spent the taxpayers' dollars. You make sure that the taxpayers are getting full value for every dollar in taxes that you raise. You treat the money like it's your own, and you manage the town budget like you would manage your household budget.
Right.
You know, at the end of the month, you can't spend more than you take in.
That's it.
It has to balance, and I think what I said before is the most important thing. When you have the attitude of, well, we'll just raise taxes and we'll get more money in. That's something we've avoided, and we've been worked tirelessly against in town hall. We've actually, in the years that I have been on the town board, we've actually cut the tax levy, either the general fund or the total town fund, and that's kind of arcane budgeting speak, but there are many different funds that the town administers. But we've cut either one, the total town fund or the general fund, 16 times in the 22 years that I have been on the town board. We've reduced the size of the town workforce by 20%, without no layoffs. I mean, just through attrition, just you know, obviously with advances in technology and better management and a focus on better management, we've been able to continue to deliver all the services that we deliver with, again, in my 22 years, with 20% fewer full-time people than when I first started. So it's an ongoing effort. It's something you always, every day, have to look at. Can we do this better? Can we do it more efficiently? And more importantly, can we do it more cheaply?
Right. Well, you know, you mentioned senior councilman. All those years, I know you have great experience. Tell me about that. I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but you've really come along. You're the most longest serving member of the board.
I'm actually, earlier this year, I became the longest serving council member at least in the modern era. I mean, the town of Hempstead goes back to 1660 something. And
I'm not going to ask you any questions on that.
And so we didn't check those records going back then. But certainly in the modern era, I am the longest serving council member, 22 years, and I just passed the fellow who had that distinction earlier this year. So it's been a long time, but you get a lot of experience. I also worked for 6.5 years in town hall as a full-time employee, so if you add it all up, it's almost 29 years of experience in town hall, and
up in Albany too.
And no, actually Washington. I worked for Congressman Norman Lent when I was a very young man. That's where I got my start. I was on the village board. I had legislative experience going all the way back to when I was 22 years old. When I was first elected to the East Rockaway Village Board at 22, and served 8 years there, 2 of them as deputy mayor, so you know, altogether, whether at the village level or the town level, it's over 30 years in public office. So I think I've learned a few things along the way.
Have. And speaking of your service on the East Rockaway Board, you understand villages. You understand what's going on here and what we need.
I understand villages. I understand what makes villages tick, and you know, both forms of government work very well here in the town of Hempstead. Those communities that decided back in the day, and most of them go back to the early 1900s. I think Lynbrook was incorporated in
1911.
1911. Okay, and I think East Rockaway was incorporated in 1900. So going all the way back, there were some communities where people banded together to form a village government. Other areas that developed a little later, stayed with the unincorporated form, where the town is the direct governing body, and both forms of government work. Because I think whether you're involved in village government or town government, I think basically the fundamental philosophy is you love your community and you want to see it grow and prosper. You want to see it keep its best qualities and preserve those, and those things that can do better, you want to try to be innovative and do them better.
Right.
You don't want to sit on the status quo, but change for the sake of change doesn't work either.
No, it doesn't work either. Well, those financial successes you talked about, is that going to, you talked a little bit about it, but the services, you give all the services the town has to give.
Well,
and more.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it would be, it would take me more time than we have allotted to this program to go through all the services that the town delivers. But I would like to, one thing that I would like to talk a little bit about, because a lot of people who will be watching this program are obviously residents of the village of Lynbrook, so they may say, well, what does the town do for me? And I think that's an important thing to just go over very, very briefly. As I said, the parks and recreation facilities are open to all town residents, because if you're a resident of Lynbrook, you're a resident of the town of Hempstead as well. So obviously you're able to use our Olympic-sized swimming pool at Echo Park, and any one of our town beaches, any one of our town golf courses, the
parks,
Marine Nature Study area in Oceanside, Levy Preserve, which is in Merrick, which is a beautiful, if you haven't been to the Norman J. Levy Nature Preserve in Merrick, it's right on Merrick Road in Merrick, just as you go over the Meadowbrook Parkway. A beautiful place to spend the day, very child-friendly. If you want to just take a nice walk and hike in nature, absolutely beautiful facility. Oceanside, right, very nearby here in Lynbrook, we have the Marine Nature Study area. Same thing, beautiful place. So we have all of those parks and recreation facilities. We have obviously the Department of Conservation and Waterways, which means we are responsible for all of the waterways, all of the inland waterways that surround the town of Hempstead, which stretches all the way from Inwood along the South Shore all the way out to Seaford. So there are miles and miles and miles of canals and waterways that we are in charge of. I mean, if a boat breaks down in the middle of in one of the channels, it's the town of Hempstead's Bay Constable which is through the Department of Conservation and Waterways, that's responsible for clearing the passageway and keeping the waterways navigable. So anybody who does anything on the water, whether you're a fisherman, a boater, the town of Hempstead is responsible for those waterways that you would see down there. Our town clerk's office is obviously a repository of all the different records, whether it's marriage, marriage licenses, birth certificates, things of that nature, and that again is open to all town residents. We have a first-class passport facility there in the town clerk's office. If you need a passport, it's a one-stop shop. You can walk in, you get your picture taken, you fill out the application, we mail it off to the federal government, and you get it within a couple of weeks, all in one place. It's not like before where you used to have to go get a picture somewhere and then go to the post office and all the rest of that. You just go in one place and we do the whole thing. Yeah. Our senior citizens department, any senior who lives anywhere in the town of Hempstead can use any of our senior facilities, join any of our senior clubs, and go there. I spoke about Camp Anchor. Again, open to all residents of the town of Hempstead. A beautiful, marvelous program for there's waiting lists. It's actually a shame that we can't accommodate all the people who want to avail themselves of that beautiful facility for someone, a loved one in their family who needs that kind of service. So again, I could just keep going, but there are so many services that people who are village residents can avail themselves from the town of Hempstead.
Well, we spoke before about the federal government, and we talk about the federal government, but we live the local government.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a great way to put it, Mayor, because your day-to-day living is your local government. Yeah. What happens in Washington obviously has a big effect on the country as a whole, but obviously what happens to the individual person and the kind of quality of life they and their families can lead and have is really a direct responsibility of the certainly the villages in the town and Nassau County as well. Yeah.
So that's it. We haven't spoke about the various trailers that come to Lynbrook, and they give the services like you spoke about, passports, the animal shelter, etc.
We actually have. We haven't put it into neighborhood service yet, but we just acquired a mobile surgical unit for our animal shelter, which means we are going to be developing and instituting a program where we'll come right into the community for people who want to have their pets spayed or neutered. which is again an important responsibility. Animal control is an important responsibility of town government. Whether if you live in a village and there is a stray dog that is menacing or something like that, or someone has to come and deal with it, it's done on the town level. Right. The town animal control department, which is part of the animal shelter, comes down and deals with that. And we obviously maintain a shelter in Merrick where strays are kept. We have a vigorous adoption program where we try to get pets loving homes through our animal shelter, because that's obviously the ideal, is for every pet to find a loving home. But this surgical van that we're going to be putting into service, again, will bring vital spay-neuter services right into local neighborhoods. We have a mobile passport unit. Yeah. You don't have to go to town hall for that. We announce it, we advertise it, and we bring it right to you. Our town clerk, Nazrin Ahmad, does a great job with that, and again brings the passport services right into localities. We've brought it into Lynbrook, we've brought it into Rockville Center, East Rockaway, all communities, and it's done on a weekend, so it's very, very convenient for people to come down and have a passport. And everybody really should have a passport, because you never know when something's going to come up and you have to travel. And young people should have a passport as well. Because you never know when that, because today you need a passport to go almost anywhere out of the country, and you never know when the opportunity arises. You be prepared, be ready.
You have the STOP program too. So
the STOP program is another program that, again, open to all residents. And what STOP means is stop throwing out pollutants, and that is if you have, everybody, I'm sure, in their garage has half-empty paint cans or turpentine or fertilizer chemicals, and
they're 20 years old.
20 years old, and you can't put it out at the curb, and you're trying to look for a way to safely dispose of it. The town of Hempstead has a program where we pay a contractor, a hazardous waste handler, to come in, a professional in that field, and whatever you bring us, we take, and it gets safely disposed of. Two other things. It is now in New York State illegal to put electronics out at the curb. Your old television, stereo, whatever it might be, because of what is in those electronics, the metals and the different things, you can't put it out at the curb anymore. And so we now have a program where you can, we several times a year have it's called an e-cycling program, and we take all of that stuff, computers, televisions, stereos, any kind of electronic device, and we will safely dispose of it for you. And again, we have them in different places a couple of times a year throughout the town. We now even do shredding. We have programs where people can come, because obviously identity theft is a big concern in people. We have shredding programs where people can come and bring their old documents that they want to get rid of, and safely get rid of them. They'll be shredded right before your eyes, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah. It's great the village residents, some of those things I didn't know myself. Yeah. So it's great to tell them about this.
And they're available to any town resident, and obviously if you're looking for specific dates, just go on the town website, which is toh.li. It's real easy. TOH Long Island, toh.li. Takes you right there, and with a couple of clicks, you can navigate the thing very easily and find out when all of these programs are taking place.
Very important to recently is Superstorm Sandy.
Right.
And I know you were very involved.
Very tough.
Lynbrook was devastated, not as much as East Rockaway and Freeport, but we had no power, we had no gas. And tell me a little about that, the town is helping.
Well, I live in East Rockaway, and I actually had water come right up to my doorstep. It did not come into the house. I was very, very lucky. But water literally came, and I live on my house is a little elevated. There had to be 3 or 4 feet of water in the street. Came right up to the house, and neighbors down the block a little bit, whose houses are a little lower, they were devastated. They were wiped out. So I was personally lucky, but a lot of my neighbors lost everything. And it was very difficult, because obviously we were, as with Lynbrook, we were out of power. I was out of power, didn't have power in my house for 14 days. But I got away lucky, because once the power came back on, I didn't lose anything. But there were people who lost everything. And it was very difficult. And a lot of people responded from all over the country with aid of different kinds. It even got to the point where we had to start to turn stuff away because there was no place to put it. But people were out of their homes for months. And something as simple, we opened up our town beaches, our town park facilities, those that have showers in them, like the one in Eula Point, which is in Bay Park, which is East Rockaway. Eula Point Park has it's a summer beach facility, so it has showers. We opened that up, turned the showers on, and because if you haven't had a hot shower in 3 or 4 days, it's uncomfortable. It's not nice. So we were able to do that. We used a lot of our parks. We used as staging facilities for the Red Cross and other organizations that came in with food supplies, cleaning supplies, because obviously the big thing was getting the mold out. People wanted to deal with that right away, and they should have dealt with that right away. But it was a very difficult couple of months, and for some people, when you get into the whole FEMA and the insurance, flood insurance, and now New York Rising, there are people who are not in their homes yet, and we're over 2 years later.
Yeah, I know you helped some people with insurance as well as they couldn't pump gas, and I know there's some legislation.
Well, on a couple of things. We worked very closely. We're fortunate to have a great assemblyman by the name of Brian Curran in this area, and his office was so helpful dealing with the New York State Insurance Department for people who had insurance claims and who were basically being they were being ignored, and everybody we sent to Assemblyman Curran, and he didn't check to see if they were in his district or not. If there was someone who needed help, he jumped right on it and really helped people get the money that was owed to them. So that was a big part of that was one of the big hurdles, was helping people with that.
And that's local government.
And that's local government working. And the biggest lesson, and I'll deal with the gas station thing in a second. The biggest lesson I took from Hurricane Sandy, and maybe it's easier said than done, everybody needs to have something set aside for a rainy day. Because so many people, those people who had something set aside, they were able to get the contractors, they were able to go right to it, and it was a lot easier for them than people who had to wait to be reimbursed, whether it was by their insurance company, whether it was by FEMA, whether it was by whoever. Those folks really had a hard time of it. So my advice to everybody is try as best you can to put something away so that if tragedy ever strikes, you're ready to deal with it. Gas station, the other thing that really, again, the no power created a situation where if there's no power, gasoline pumps don't work, and you couldn't pump the gas out of the ground, and that created gas lines and everything else that went along with that. So what I did in the wake of Hurricane Sandy is we wrote a local law, Supervisor Murray and I, that now requires every gas station in the town of Hempstead, so those located in an unincorporated area, has to have a backup generator system. New construction, new gas stations have to have it immediately, and the other ones, the existing ones, had about 2 years to do it. So they're probably coming to right to the point where they should almost all be retrofitted, so that if the lights ever go out again, at the very least, the gas that's in the tanks. Because the other thing that happened with Sandy, because a lot of that gasoline supply comes in by boat, and it comes in through the Inwood area, but the docks were wiped out, so there was no way to get the fuel off the boats and onto the trucks. But at the very least, that fuel supply, that gasoline and diesel that's in the tanks, and these gas stations have huge tanks,
20,000 gallons or more.
So at the very least, that which is there can be pumped out. So it will be at least something that you won't have an automatic cessation where no one can get gasoline.
Well, I understand that you've done many years and many times a year, has given town meetings. People have questions after this. They can come to one. Right. When's the next one?
Well, we're actually working on one here in Lynbrook. I don't have the date yet, but we're working it out for scheduling purposes. What I like to do is I like to bring every level of local government that could be helpful to people in one place at one time. So, like here in Lynbrook, obviously you always are so gracious to host it here in Village Hall, and I come with representatives of various town departments, and we like to have our state assemblyman here and our county legislator here, so that if anybody has a problem, because the funny thing about government, let's say particularly here in Lynbrook, the frustrating thing, it's probably a better word than funny, if someone has a situation with they said they come to complain about a pothole.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's on Sunrise Highway, that's a state road. If it's on Merrick Road, that's a county problem. If it's on a side street here in Lynbrook, that's your problem. If it's on the little unincorporated part of Lynbrook that's down south by Lynbrook South Middle School, then it's my problem. But you have to kind of know the streets. But what I like to do is have everybody in one place, so when people, I don't expect people to know who they have to complain to. If they come with a complaint, I like to have everybody in one room so that at least somebody there is the right person to handle it.
They should then call your office, correct?
Well, yeah, well, that's the other thing, too, is I always like to say to people, don't try to figure out the Byzantine maze of local government. Just call my office, which is 812-3200. And the people who work there, 516-812-3200, the people who work there will know whether it's a state problem, a county problem, a village problem, or a town problem,
right.
and they'll be able to cut through the red tape for you.
Yeah, I know, Councilman, many times when you get a call at your office, I get a letter right away.
Yeah, we send it right off.
You're very quick. So.
And the good thing is that when I send a letter here to Lynbrook, that problem usually gets solved just as quickly, so it's great.
So thank you
It's
very much for that.
Good partnership.
I have some photos. It is. I have some photos of the last town hall meeting.
Okay.
And I'm going to show it
That's
to
fine.
you.
Yep, that was last year's. Yep.
That was good,
Yep,
and it's on our screen right now.
Okay.
It was a great meeting.
Yeah, that was it. That was a great meeting, and we had a lot of folks there. We had obviously Assemblyman Curran was there, Fran Becker, our county legislator, was there. You and members of your board were there, and it was nice also because former Supreme Court Justice and former Mayor Francis X. Becker Sr. was there, and it was nice to see him.
It was a good meeting.
It was a good meeting.
Well, secondly,
Yeah.
I know you've recently hosted, along with Ed Mangano, a program about Narcan.
Yep.
And I'm going to show you a photo. You probably
Yeah. Well, this was obviously one of the biggest problems facing our community today is, and the more I delve into it, the more I am shocked at the scope of the problem. Is substance abuse among our young people, and we're not just talking about, and not that it was ever right, but in our day, if somebody got a little bottle of Jack Daniels and we were behind the schoolyard with it, that was that was a big deal. It is now today a real serious problem, and people need to know the extent of the problem, and whether you have kids or not, because if you don't have kids yourself, you have nieces, you have nephews, you have neighbors,
sure.
And there's a lot of help out there, but you have to know, the young people have to want the help, and the parents have to know where the help is available. But it's really a real scourge on our community.
Well, of course, again, you can call the village or your office if you want to know programs.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's good.
Absolutely.
Last but not least, I wanted to show you a photo that we recently took, and we're going to end on a happy note.
Happy note, okay.
The Easter Bunny comes.
Oh, that's when the Easter Bunny came to town. Yeah, the Easter Bunny came to Lynbrook, and we had a lot of fun. That was in Grice Park, and there were a lot of happy kids there who went hunting for Easter eggs, and they got some nice chocolates and some nice presents, and that was a fun day. And that's another thing that is really nice about local government. And again, whether it's Lynbrook or in Rockville Center, I know town of Hempstead, we do it in a lot of different communities. These kind of things, when Santa Claus comes to town or the Easter Bunny, it gives everybody a sense of community, and it's I don't think they're things that you find in too many big cities. I think it's one of the real nice things about living in suburbia, and we're small town, local government, where everybody comes together to celebrate and to enjoy a little fellowship and neighborliness, and it's a nice thing.
And Councilman, you're always there for us.
Oh,
and you
thank
come,
you.
and the Easter Bunny was very happy.
But I didn't get an egg, so
No, but you would have gotten one, but you let the kids get it.
I let the kids get it. Okay, absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
And
It was
the
great. A lot of fun.
And the
Always.
residents always like to hear from you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your help.
Thank you.